God bless you guys. God bless you, GSM. God bless you, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real. My name is Nick Vargas, the prettier one. As you may notice, don't get scared. Okay, do not get scared. Whatever you do, don't change the channel. All right, you're in the right spot. But you know, as we like to do things in church, we like to upgrade and always renew things and figure out how can we make things better. And they're like, "Yo, forget Nick. Let's bring in Jay." So that's what we're here for. We're just gonna upgrade and we'll kick Nick out. We're just kidding. Listen, we love Nick. Nick right now, he's not feeling well. Just like a bunch of other people, this change of weather is knocking everybody down to the ground. It's causing a lot of headaches. It's causing me headaches. My daughter's been sick. Everybody I know has been sick, and thank God that I'm not sick. But we're here. I'm here to help. So I was like, why not? So here we are today. We're keeping it real with Jay. So thank you guys for tuning in. We're here again, obviously, of course, with our pastor. Pastor, welcome.
God bless you. I was going to say, God bless you, brother Nick.
Nah.
God bless you, Jay. God bless the audience. We're honored to have everyone with us tonight. And we're looking forward to a great conversation. Thank you for sitting in for brother Nick, whom we pray, Nick, get well soon. Amen. I don't know. I think this is probably Nick's first time ever.
Yeah.
Missing, right?
This whole entire time.
Yeah.
It's always been pastor.
Yeah,
missing.
but we'll see how it goes, because if you do better than Nick, then we'll keep you. We'll get rid of Nick.
We'll put him on the cameras. Yeah. No, but that'll be awesome. But Nick, we love you. We love you, bro. We love you.
Get well soon, Nick.
That's it. But we got a great topic. I was told last minute. This is the weird thing, is that I'm here texting Nick all day long. We're conversating. We're in a group text. Not one time did he ever mention, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. Prepare anything." He's just acting like everything is fine, and he's gonna come in. And then I get the phone call from you, at like around 5:30. He's like, "Hey, so Nick is sick." I'm like, "Wait, what you mean? I've been texting all day." So Nick, next time, give me a heads up, bro. Just let me know. But I one thing I love about the Lord and how He works is that when you call on Him, He's gonna reply, whether it's right there in the moment or whenever He feels like it. But He knows the situation that you're in. He knew the time crunch that I was in, and I asked God, I was like, "Lord, I need a topic that I can help and give." Not only for the people, but for myself to receive, because I want to receive as well.
Yeah.
And, the Lord Bond just hit me with a topic and a bunch of questions. I was like, thank you. I just love that God sometimes just works instantly.
Yes.
And today we have a great topic. I have a bunch of questions for Pastor. And so hopefully you guys tune in. Make sure, like I said, make sure you're sharing. If you guys already seen the title and the topic is already there. But I'm going to go ahead and lead us in, because I had a topic in mind, the question, because I've been going through it myself. I know some of us has been going through it. You've either gone through it, going through it currently, have gone to it, or about to do it.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about today's topic, burnout. And when I was thinking about it, it reminded me of Elijah, who at one point, after having so many victories, came to the point was like, I had enough. I would rather die than go facing this day in and out. So to the point where he was so burnt out, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that he wanted to he'd rather die than continue going.
Yeah.
And today's topic I wanted to talk about was burnout. And one of the first things I wanted to talk about was what causes people to burn out, and how do people burn out? Like, how does burnout happen?
Burnout could happen for different reasons. I think that one of the most common reasons that burnout can occur is when we take upon ourselves more than what we can handle, and a lot of times the people that take upon themselves more than what they can handle, they don't do it irresponsibly. You know what I mean? They do it with the best intentions. The best desires, the best dispositions, with goodwill. But sometimes we never really take the time to evaluate our lives in every arena. You know what I mean? And it's not until you find yourself in a critical moment in your life that you realize that you're burnt out, because now you don't even know how to respond to those challenges that you're going through in life. And that's what happened to Elijah. There was so much on his shoulders, so much he was dealing with, that at a moment of a threat where he's facing this challenge, he realized that in spite of experiencing God's fire coming down from heaven,
Right.
that personal challenge, because it was a personal challenge, that personal challenge he didn't know how to deal with. It's amazing how we could deal with a lot of things outside of ourselves, but when it comes with our own personal lives, we realize that, okay, there's something ain't right here. And it's usually a lot to do with burnout, being burnt out. You've given you so much of yourself in so many ways that when it comes to supporting yourself, you don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and I find myself a lot of times, you know, we serve. You see my face a lot here if you guys go into GSM, and just like other leaders, like, you know, we're here, we're fighting, we're struggling. And there's times that, you know, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, you know, I could just easily just say, hey, I don't want to do this no more. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, you just get so tired and so overwhelmed. And like you said, like there's times that I can help anyone else out. I can do everything for everyone else and be fine. But when it comes to me, you know, it's almost like hard. Like, I don't have the strength to go ahead and do it. And so that kind of leads into, you know, how do I continue to serve without getting burnt out?
Yeah.
Because there's times that, you know, we're all going to go through something, whether, you know, serving in church, you know, we can get burnt out in every area.
Yeah.
In our marriages, we get burnt out. In our
Absolutely.
relationships, work, and life in general. But, you know, how can we continue serving and continue to give our all without getting burnt out?
Yeah. You know, when burnout hits, it can affect any area of your life. It can affect your family. It can affect your social life outside of the family, outside of church, you know, with relationships with friends, because now all of a sudden you start isolating, and your own friends that used to hang out start saying, what's going on with Jay? He ain't hanging out with us no more. We used to always, you know, do gigs, or always, you know, go to the game and stuff like that. What's going on with Jay? Or if you're involved in the ministry, it can affect you in the ministry. And I think that the best way to deal with it is, you know, no one knows you better than yourself, you know? And one of the difficult things that we deal with is learning to say no. How much can I take? How much can I deal with, you know? Sometimes we want to please everybody, you know? And again, I say this, you know, we do it with good intention. We do it with the best disposition. We do it, you know, with goodwill. But we lose sight of keeping a healthy balance with everything that we're taking on ourselves, you know, in the family, at church, with work, and so many other areas that you're directly associated to. If we don't create a healthy balance between the things that we're involved in, sooner or later it's going to fall apart on you. You know, it's going to come crumbling down, and it's going to affect you. And it might affect you in every area at the same time, or it might affect you in one area, you know, and once it affects you in that area, it's going to be reflected in another area. You know, for example, I've known of situations where people have become so burnt out that it's affected their family. It's affected their marriage. You know what I mean? Directly. It didn't affect their church position. It didn't affect their work position. It didn't affect their relationship with their friends. But it's affecting their marriage. But because it's affecting their marriage, now it's affecting their place in church.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you see that one area, you know, whenever the domino falls in one area, it creates a domino effect, and it starts affecting you little by little in other areas. You know, so that's, you know, burnout could just show up in so many different ways, and can affect us in so many different ways. And I think that what we need to do if we want to avoid burnout is do an honest inventory of everything that we're doing in our lives, okay? And identify those things that are, what's that word I'm looking for? Those things that are flexible and those things that are non-flexible. I think that's one of the, and I think in the financial world that those terms are also used. But I would say identify those things that are flexible in your life and the things that are non-flexible. See, the things that are non-flexible, you know, you want to prioritize them, establish an order according to Scripture and how God leads us, you know, according to Scripture, and those things that's always going to be a part of your life. That's going to be the non-flexible stuff is sometimes the things that really are the ones affecting the the flexible things are the ones that sometimes we allow ourselves to become so overwhelmed that they affect the most important things in our lives.
Yeah.
And then when we burn out, the flexible things is not what gets affected. It's the most important things in our lives is what gets affected. You know, whether that's marriage, whether it's work, you know, because then some people, their careers are you know, they end up losing jobs, or they end up quitting jobs because they fall into a depression, or they end up in ministry making decisions that can affect them, affect the church, and affect, you know. And so what we need to do is make an honest inventory. An honest inventory, a responsible, an honest inventory that's going to lead us to making responsible decisions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? In order to establish a healthy balance in our lives, and if we don't do that, you know, we're on path of becoming burnt out, and you know how it shows up is going to be drastic, and you know the things and the people it can affect. Especially yourself, could be detrimental.
Yeah, I know with myself, I'm like a yes person when it comes to like serving. And I think I get that from, you know, from my parents. You know, I've seen them serve, you know, with all their heart, you're giving it their all. You know, without receiving any credit, without looking, they just do it because, you know, God's been so good, has blessed them with so many things that, you know, you got no other choice but to just serve, because that's the least that we can do. You know, for everything that God has done for us. So seeing them, you know, I've gained that aspect. Maybe when I was younger, I was a little bit more hard-headed. I was a little bit more self-pointed. So anything that, you know, benefited me, you know, I was for. But as you get older, you know, you start realizing, okay, you know, my responsibility should be, you know, my church. You know, before any activity outside of the church. If I have service that day, I gotta be there. I'm supposed to serve. So I end up finding myself, you know, always saying yes, and even my wife will sometimes like, babe, like, you know, you keep saying yes, and it kind of reminds me of like, you know, like a clown, someone who juggles. You know, everybody knows their limit. You know, I could probably juggle one ball and do that all day long and be fine. You know, you throw another one, okay, maybe I might be able to juggle two, but you throw that third or fourth one.
Or
everything's falling or eggs, and everything's gonna just crack and break. And it's like you mentioned, and what we always, you know, mention here at GSM is, you know, you check yourself. You know, and one of those, the hardest thing to do is check yourself. And what better than to be at a church where you have a bunch of, you know, friends and families that are there around you, that when you can't check yourself, you have that person next to you that can help you out.
Absolutely.
And so as that person, as your friend, as the member of church, you know, what signs, what things can we look for in someone that is about to burn out?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think it's more for the individual itself. I would tell the individual who thinks that he or she is experiencing burnout, one of the signs of entering into a state of burnout is when you lose your joy for what you love. Okay? You know, and I'll use myself as an example. I love my ministry. I love my calling. I love pastorship. You know what I mean? God knows I love ministry. But the minute I step that pulpit or do whatever I'm doing as a pastor, and I find that my emotions are not connected to what I'm doing passionately for the Lord, I'm entering a state of burnout. You know what I mean? And that's dangerous, because you have to love what you do. They even talk about that in employment. You know what I mean? There's some people that work certain jobs, and I know I don't want to get out of topic. There are people that do certain jobs that they shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? You got to love what you're doing. You know what I mean? And if you don't, listen, the minute you lose touch with the joy of what you're doing, you're gonna hurt. You're gonna mistreat other people. You know, you're gonna hurt other people. And it's not that you're mean, it's not that you're a bad person. You're just exhausted, man. You're tired. You're weary. You're not where you need to be mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually. And we tend to act in ways and conduct in ways that's not good. But I think one of the biggest signs, one of the most important signs of burnout, is when you lose your joy for what you're doing. And that could be anything. That could be a marriage. If you lose your joy towards your wife, your joy of being with her, your joy of holding hands with her, you know what I mean? Your joy of having her around. You know what I mean? You could be entering a state that's, I'm saying it could be reflected in that area. Yeah. You start lashing out at each other and stuff like that. That could be a sign of burnout. You know what I mean? Because there's a disconnect. And burnout, that's what burnout, burnout is associated with the word burn, burn or something that's burning, it burns with fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you connect something with a rope, one thing to another, if you put fire underneath that rope, that rope is going to catch fire, and what's going to happen? What happens when the fire burns through the rope? What happens? Mm-hmm. There's a disconnect. That's what burnout does. Burnout tends to disconnect us from a lot of things that are, important.
Yeah.
No,
and I think it's good because a lot of the, and I'll speak now to those that are serving in church, especially like here at GSM, right? Yeah, you could apply this anywhere to any other church, but we'll talk about GSM so no one gets hurt. But we have a lot of people that do serve, and they're married couples.
Yes.
And so one of the areas that I see that does get affected in serving is, your relationship with your spouse, because maybe sometimes without thinking you're putting ministry sometimes ahead, or you're focusing so much on the one area that now you lose focus on this area and you forget about this part, and little by little we start losing just hope, and we get so stressed out.
Yeah.
And stressed out, or stress has a way to suck your will to just go on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned again about fire, and I'm talking about this, so it kind of goes in line with what I have next for this question. Is, now, we're going to look at fire a little differently. We're not going to look about the way it burns in the sense of quemado, like when you have a burnt chuleta. That doesn't taste good. But a good fire, the slow roasting, the one that Tony Santiago, when he makes his meat,
off
like,
the bone.
Oh, my God. How do we keep the fire, the healthy fire going?
Yeah. Again, you keep a healthy fire going by feeding it properly. And you could use the analogy in the book of Leviticus when the Lord says that the fire in the altar must be kept burning. Two things have to happen. Number one, the ashes of yesterday's fire has to be removed, and fresh wood has to be fed to the fire. Meaning this, we not only must we have our priorities in place, but we must have a healthy balance. You can't attend to one thing and neglect another. That's not a healthy balance. That's being neglectful. Even if you did one good thing in one area. So you could have been faithful in church, but if you went home and told your wife, I know I was going to take you out to dinner, but I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm not going to go, that's being neglectful. That's being irresponsible. Vice versa. If you made a commitment to the church and somebody did something with their family this day, and then they got another commitment with the church, you got to keep and you don't do it, then you got to keep a healthy balance. You know what I mean? And healthy balance means knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no. You know what I mean? I think just the other day, my wife and I, we were looking. We're always reviewing. I think me and Anna review our calendars every day, and we were reviewing our calendars, just keeping touch of our commitments and stuff like that, making sure that we keep a healthy balance, that we don't overcommit. And I've made that mistake before of overcommitting. Thankfully, we've been able to recuperate after overcommitting. As a matter of fact, even when I got sick recently, that I was hospitalized, that I was facing a serious situation there at the hospital. You know, the main doctor came to see me the second day that I was hospitalized, and she says, Pastor, so I understand that you're busy and that, you know, you might be involved. So what did you do? No, she goes, how did you get sick? This is her question. She goes, how did you get sick? What do you think brought you here? And then I said, I don't know how I got sick. That was my answer. I'm laying in bed. I'm medicated. I'm trying. I'm just glad I'm living, right? And I said, I looked, you know, and I said, I don't know. I don't know how I got sick. And she says, Pastor, what do you mean you don't know how you got sick? She says, everyone knows how they got sick. And then she started asking me the questions that would make that, you know, to create consciousness in me and put me on a journey, you know, to the moment of where I got sick. She goes, when did you start feeling sick? I said, I started feeling sick Monday. I started feeling sick Monday. She goes, what were you doing Monday? I said, well, you know, I usually, you know, rest in the morning. Mondays I try to rest a few hours. And then I went to church. We have, you know, virtual prayer. Then we have a podcast. But throughout the day, I noticed that progressively I was getting, you know, worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I knew it. I know my body, and I felt that progressively I was developing something. I don't know what it was, but I was developing something. And it wasn't until that night at the podcast that I saw myself coughing. Remember, I jokingly, I didn't know, and I jokingly told Nick, because Nick is always coughing, folks. Nick is always. If you ever hear anything, any coughs, it's not me, it's Nick. Nick is always coughing.
This side of the table, I was just coughing. What's going on here?
And so I told Nick, what did you? Tú me pegaste algo? Did you you know, get me sick or something? I said that jokingly, but remember afterwards, you were here, we were done, and I told you guys, you know, guys, I'm gonna head out. I'm not feeling good. You know, and I started just feeling under the weather more and more and more. And that Tuesday morning, I couldn't get out. I couldn't get up. I was like a ton of bricks. I could not get up. You know, I had to take medication. I was dysfunctional. And then that Wednesday to Tuesday at 12:45 in the morning was when I got up that I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. I was like a fish out of water. And anyways, I was hospitalized for 3 days, and thankfully, you know, we're here. But she goes, I told her, you know, I started feeling like this Monday. She goes, yeah, but what did you do before that? What have you been out? Have you been traveling? Have you been out with, you know, doing things in ministry? I said, yeah. She goes, what kind of things? And I told her, well, I said, well, look, Friday we had in our local church we had a men's ministry gathering. Saturday morning, we was at the New Haven Green feeding the homeless and just doing evangelistic work. Saturday night, we was in Brooklyn with another men's event, ministering at a men's event. Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, I was preaching at one church in Hamden. At 10 o'clock, I was preaching at our church. At 11:30, I was preaching at another church in New Haven. And she goes, you see, Pastor, you know how you got sick. You know? She goes, you're taking too much upon yourself. You exposed yourself since Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday, 3 services. These are 5 different places that you've gone to with a lot of people that you're hugging, you're shaking hands, you're embracing, you're connecting with them, you're engaging them.
Microphones, all that.
She says, and now you're here. And she says, you have to make adjustments. You have to, and we had that conversation. Burnout is similar to that. You know what I mean? We have to make an honest assessment, an honest inventory between the flexible, the non-flexible. Start eliminating those things that I'm not saying they're not important, but they're not important for you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In other words, somebody else can do it. There are things that somebody else can do it past the mark, doesn't necessarily have to be there.
Right.
I don't have to be the preacher of that night. You know what I mean? I have to make sure that I'm healthy enough to be preaching here on a Sunday.
Right.
Because if I'm preaching everywhere else and exposing myself, I can get sick, and now I'm affecting the most important place, which is the altar of Good Shepherd Ministries. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So preaching is not the problem, is where I'm going, how many commitments I'm doing, and then the most important platform God has given me is right here in the church.
Right.
By this, I'm not saying I'm not going to preach outdoors, but I got to be careful to plan it well, balance it well, where I'm not putting myself at risk of facing a situation where now the church that I'm shepherding, they're affected.
100%.
And so you apply that same principle in everything.
Yeah.
And it's all about priorities and balance. You establish the priorities, you create a healthy balance, you know what I mean? And you make it work. My wife is watching. I know she's faithful to keeping it real. And she knows, you know what I mean? I will never, and I've said it here before, I will never make a commitment with ministry and not make time for her.
Yeah.
Even when I'm out doing ministry, I make sure that I make time for her. Even while I'm doing ministry.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm going to travel. I was invited to California. Anybody out there in California wants to bring me, look me up.
Shout out.
Give me a shout out. But let's say I get invited to California. You know what I mean? And they want me for a weekend, Friday to Sunday. You know what I mean? Or Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
And they ask me what type of arrangements you want me to make. I'm going to tell them, look, why don't you fly me in Friday and fly me out Monday? Why do I do that? Because if I know that Saturday and Sunday I'm going to be with the church, I want Friday when I arrive, settle down at the hotel and go hang out with the lady.
Yeah.
Go out to have a good dinner with her. Have her take me to Ruth Chris. You know, you know what I mean? And we hang out. You know what I mean? And we make time to be together where she supports me in doing ministry, but I also support her by not neglecting her.
Right.
And so it's all about prioritizing and establishing balance. That's it. If we can get those two things right, listen, you won't burn out. You know, and when I talk about prioritizing, Jay, and establishing balance, that includes everything.
Yeah.
Not only what we do, but even taking time for rest. When you need to just shut it down, don't do nothing. Stay home. There are times when me and Anna, we stay home. We do things together. We watch TV. We have, we eat. We go for a walk. Or whatever the case might be. But we spend that moment together, and we laugh. Make time to laugh with your spouse. Everything can't be an argument. Everything can't be a disagreement. Everything can't be a problem. Another way that you can see burnout affecting the home is when all the conversations have to do with disagreements. All the conversations have to do, you're bothered about something you didn't like something, and it's just, incomodidad, it can't be about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There has to be some meaningful conversation. There has to be laughter. 100%. I love it when me and my wife laugh. I love it when I make her laugh. You know what I mean? And she laughs. It makes me feel good. You know what I mean? And so all of these things are important to try to avoid burnout.
Yeah.
And it's not about, remember this, it's not always about taking less. By this, I'm not saying it's okay to take more. No, it's not okay to take too much.
Right.
But avoiding burnout is not about taking less. It's about managing what you have, establishing priorities and healthy balance. Some people think that trying to find balance is taking less. There might be some things you need to cut out,
Right.
but it's not about taking less it's not about doing nothing. Because if you do nothing, you feel without a purpose.
Yeah.
You feel worthless. You don't feel valuable. You know what I mean? And not only are we valuable for who we are, that's important, but we also have a sense of worth because of what I'm doing, especially when you're serving the King of Kings. Man, you feel good about that, you know?
Yeah. No, you, again, all amazing stuff from Pastor, and I always left in shock just every time he speaks. Because again, we do these topics, and Pastor has no idea. We're just coming in at him, and he just off the top of his head, I don't know anyone who could do it better. But it reminds me of the story with the talents. Just because we're talking about not avoiding being burnt out.
Yeah.
But everyone has talents, right? And some have a little bit more than others.
Yeah.
So don't think that because so and so, you see them involved and have all this stuff together, that means that no, you have to keep up in order to be looked at the same. It's like no, God made you with your talent. If it's one, then you do the best in that one talent.
Yeah.
If it's managing more than one things, then great, you do that. But He still gave everybody a talent. So make sure everyone that's watching here in church, if you serve, if I could grab anything that we're talking about from today, is that if we all actually pitched in to help each other, no one would feel burnt out because we would have the full support of the entire church.
And I like that point that you bring up. It just a download came when you used that analogy. That biblical analogy was just so correct. Paul speaks and he says, look what Paul says. He says, God does not give us more than what we can handle. You know what I mean? Or God does not allow more on us. And of course, he's in context, he's talking about temptation. But in principle, it could be applied to other things. Right. God never gives us more than what we can handle. So even God himself, when he's handing out gifts and talents and duties, right, and responsibilities, God knows your capacity.
Right, yeah. Amen.
And if you understand, a lot of things in life, or everything in life, is determined by capacity. You got bottles that will tell you 16 ounce. And then you got the bottles that are made for 8 ounces. You got gallons of milk that are made for pints, gallons of milk that are made for half a gallon. Milk. Containers that are made for pints, containers that are made for half a gallon, containers that are made for gallons. You can't put a gallon of milk in a container for half a gallon.
Yep.
You're going to spill the milk. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you can't try to sell a gallon of milk with only a pint of milk in it.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to say, you're ripping me off.
It's a bag of chips.
So it's got to be right. And God is always right. Remember this. Anytime we face burnout or anytime we feel overwhelmed or face a situation like what we're talking about, it's never God's fault.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because God, the reason we burn out is not because God gives us more than what we can handle, but we take upon more than what God has given us.
Yeah.
Notice that in the parable of the talents, Jesus says that the master gave the talents to the stewards. The stewards don't choose the talents. The master gives the talent. Why doesn't God allow us to choose? Because sometimes we choose too little or we choose too much. Let God give it to you. And so one of the things I always tell the leaders is that in these conversations for serving in the church and taking upon responsibilities, you got to have that conviction in your heart. And in our conversations, we always allow them to think about it, pray about it, talk to your spouse, come back and talk to us, but talk to God. In other words, you got to know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The container has to know how much can I contain.
100%, yeah.
You know what I mean? So God is the one that gives the talents. We don't choose them. We don't select them. We don't take them. We run into problems or we run into the risks of burnout when we take more than what God has given us. So if God gave you 7, be faithful with 7.
Yeah.
If God gave you 5, be faithful with 5.
Mm-hmm.
If God gave you 3, be faithful with 3.
That's it.
If God gave you 1, be faithful with 1. The one that has 7 should not complain about the one who has 1. And the one who has 1 should not try to imitate the one who has 5. You got to be faithful with what God has given you. You know, and all God wants is for, you know, I don't want you to have more, I don't want you to have less. I want you to be faithful.
Yeah.
Don't dig it. Don't bury it either.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Put it to use, you know, and be faithful to the Lord.
Yeah. Well, one thing I love about you and Pastora, you know, I've been in church since we moved to this location.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years is that I have. I'm assuming it's over 10 years. It feels like it's been a lot longer.
10 years already?
Yeah, at least
Wow.
minimum.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so shout out to GSM. Already 10 years in this new location.
Amen.
But one thing I got to see is also, as a pastor, the ways you've modified yourselves. Like you don't stay stuck on being the same way that you were, you know, 10 years ago. Not in the sense of who you are as your character, but how you dealt with leaders. And, you know, because there's other pastors and there's pastors that are watching here, and they're also looking for counseling and ideas. And it's like, as a pastor, you know, now that you're overseeing a lot of churches, do you have a lot of pastors that either put a bunch of pressure on people to serve and to overcommit? It's like, what can we do, number one, for pastors to know how to speak to, you know, or I'm sorry, how can we have pastors on? I have it.
Yeah, it's coming.
How can we let our these pastors know, or what can they do in order to help out their leaders not to overwork themselves? Like what can they do, either monthly or what can they do with their leaders to help them to make sure that, hey, are you good? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And keep up with them without them losing, you know, their leaders.
I think, you know, one of the most important in my personal experience is the pastor is responsible to making sure he understands the capacity of the church. You know what I mean? Because we talk about the capacity of the individuals, we also have to understand the capacity of the church. Are we a container of a pint of milk ministry? Are we a container of a half a gallon of milk? A half a gallon container? Are we a gallon container? Are we a 5-gallon container? And I think that where we run the risks as pastors is failing to identify what our capacity is, and then working to the wrong capacity. And then you put the burden on people unnecessarily because we're just working to the wrong capacity. And I'll explain myself. If we are a ministry according to the capacity of a half a gallon of milk, I cannot assume that we need to develop the type of leadership to serve a 5-gallon type of ministry.
Yeah.
And too many times we make that mistake. And we make that mistake because we look at other churches and we see what works for one church, what works for that church, what works for this ministry, works over there. And we think that we can do the same, and you can't. You got to work according to your capacity. If you want to grow, fine. But along the way, you have to work according to your capacity. Yeah. And so, and then you designate leaders on the basis of the capacity of the church, and I think it'll work better. You know what I mean? And so even here, there are some ministries that we've had in the past that, especially after COVID, when things changed, we modified the systems.
Yeah, the structure.
You know what I mean? And you modify the systems, and the systems helps to modify the structure.
Yeah.
The systems is how we do it. The structures is who's going to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if, for example, post-COVID, when these changes happened in our church, we noticed that, you know, we don't have the capacity to run this level of ministry. You adjust. You're not failing.
Right.
You got to adjust, and you have to adapt and continue to dream, continue to have a vision, continue to work towards objectives, but you have to make healthy decisions and healthy, you know, adjustments and adapt to the systems that's going to bless the structure to help have a healthy ministry. And so we did away with a few ministries that we saw were no longer functioning the way they should have functioned or to the capacity they should have functioned. And we saw that, you know, there was not enough volunteers, you know what I mean? And of course, we could have put people in different positions, but then we were going to overwhelm them.
Yeah.
You know, we were going to overwhelm them. And so you got to adjust. That's it. Every pastor has to understand their capacity. Because if you don't understand your capacity and you try to work, you know, if you're a container that can only hold a pint, your ministry is a container that can only hold a pint, but you're trying to run a ministry of a gallon, you're gonna hurt somebody. You're gonna hurt the ministry because you're gonna burn out the leaders. You're gonna burn out the people. You're always wanting to do activities, always wanting to do stuff, and then you're burning out your people. You're not making time for family. You know, some people find it troubling. Some people find it troubling that, like for Thanksgiving week, we suspended all of our activities that week so you could focus on the family. So you're complaining about that. I mean, so anybody who complains about that, all you're making me think is, wow, you really don't enjoy your family.
Yeah, because they have that break.
Because now you have the break, you have the time to recuperate, to refresh, to restart, and spend time with your family. Oh, by the way, we're going to do the same thing for Christmas week. On Sunday the 24th. After I just had un anuncio no pagado. You're gonna hit me with stones. Do it now. But from after the Sunday Christmas service on the 24th, that week everything's suspended until Sunday night, where we have our New Year's Eve service to bring in the new year at 9:30 at night. Just in case, get ready to make time for your family, because I'm gonna make time for my family. I'm leaving to Florida to be with my kids and my grandkids, and I'll be back on Saturday. On Sunday morning on time for service on Sunday night. You know, make time for family. There's nothing wrong with that. God ain't gonna kill you for that. It's okay to take a break. You know, there are times where it's a holiday weekend, and I'll say we're gonna suspend prayer, you know, for that Monday night because it's Memorial Day, you know, or something, whatever the case might be, you know. My wife and I, we're going to be announcing that I got to meet with Augustine first. We got a great announcement for an education event we have next year, and we're bringing in an amazing speaker. But you know, when he was offering us the dates that he's available, one of them fell on Mother's Day's weekend. And the first date he sent us, the only date he sent us was Mother's Day's weekend. And I looked at my wife and I was like, that's out of the question. No. Why? Because Mother's Day's a weekend for family. Family get together. And they don't just get to, listen, Mother's Day has grown. I give people credit for Mother's Day. Mother's Day has expanded because they don't celebrate it just on Sunday. You got family that comes over on Friday. Saturday they're going out. Monday, you know, they're still down. So that's a good thing. Listen, I want to be vulnerable. I want to be real. Can I keep it real? Of course. And this one's on me. In my early years of ministry, in my ignorance as a pastor, that was troubling. You know what I mean? I had an extreme mindset that wasn't healthy. And I learned over the years that needs to change. Healthy churches are a result of healthy families. And you cannot promote, pastors cannot promote the importance of having a healthy church if you're not willing to sacrifice to build healthy families. You know what I mean? And so that's going to require sometimes taking time from church. This weekend, I had a few families. Pastor, we're going to go away. We're going to go, enjoy, have a great time. Pastor, we're going over here. We're going to Pennsylvania. We're going to Florida. We're going, those that I know of, those that excuse themselves, right?
They did the right thing.
Not that you have to ask for permission, but those who let us know.
Crazy.
And I enjoy, and have a great time. Enjoy, rejoice, have a great trip. Be safe. We'll see you when you get back. You know what I mean? You know? Yeah, and so all of these things become important, Jay. Of course, family is important. Now, we got to be careful not to go to another unhealthy extreme where, family becomes the focal point, and then you become careless, people become careless of the talents God put in their hands. You know what I mean? The same God that blessed you with your family is the same God that blessed you with your talents. You can't be faithful with your family, faithful unto the Lord with your family, but careless with your talents unto the Lord. You got to have priorities and balance in place.
Yeah, and one of the things, I remember one of the biggest, there's always a great amount of stuff that happens here at GSM, where God always comes down, brings a great word. And some of the greatest moments have been, when you speak from your vulnerability, when you speak from your heart. And, on the topic of, burning out or, just kind of giving up, I want this to kind of serve as, a handout or just an extension of a hand just to motivate and encourage those people that, maybe hearing this, I realizing that, man, maybe I am in a situation of being burnt out. I didn't know I was in that situation. I thought maybe I was just arguing with my spouse, because she's just crazy or he's nuts. But now we're realizing that, no, there's a bigger picture involved.
Absolutely.
And one of the memories is when you had mentioned how, you was about to just go take your flight. I don't know if you want to bring that up, but.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely that falls into the category of a burnout. I was mentally and emotionally, and I was even affected spiritually. It affected me spiritually. Anytime you experience burnout, it affects your spirituality. It affects your relationship with the Lord. And I found myself at that place, where I felt like I was losing my joy. I was losing my passion. I was losing my drive. You know what I mean? And anybody who knows Pastor Mark, I have a strong drive. I have a strong drive for ministry, a passionate drive for ministry. And I just felt a big disconnect, like the cord was burnt and just hanging on both ends. You know what I mean? A lot of it had to do with the overwhelming burden during the time of COVID. And it just felt like, it felt like, I don't think I ever shared, right, these details, but I just felt like, of course, every pastor felt like we were not ready for that moment. We were not trained for that moment. Nobody expected that to happen. Nobody expected a shutdown. It changed the face of ministry. You know what I mean? In a big way. A church was definitely different. I mean, we just had to learn to do ministry overnight in a whole different way. And it was challenging. That was challenging. COVID was challenging. People dying was challenging, even in my own family. The shutdown, the adjustments, the learning. Just everything was just a burden. But nothing, how can I say this without creating prejudice in the minds of anybody? Nothing affected me more, Jay, affected me more than not being able to please everybody. I think the the dagger that me traspasó, it just pierced me, went right through me and crushed me, was when anything that we tried to do to make things better for the church, there was always people who were not satisfied with what we were doing. They weren't looking at the good of what we were doing in the midst of a crisis, a worldwide crisis. And here you are thrown into the fire, untrained, unequipped, not knowing what to do, shut down. I mean, and then when it came to following, government guidelines and establishing procedures, and I was just getting hit from every end. I would get phone calls. I would get texts. It was just coming from every angle. People were leaving the church, saying stuff that were not true, just being critical and just attacking my character and attacking me and saying things to other places. And I say this, and I know this because people over there, wherever they were going to that knew me and loved us, they would call us and tell us, hey, you got a disgruntled member over here who came over here. And so these things, when you're crushed by this disaster and you're doing everything possible to keep yourself up, to keep your family up, to keep the church up, and then you still have people that are unhappy. You're not pleasing them. Everything you're doing is wrong. Why didn't you do it this way? This way would have been better. Couldn't we have done it then? Why nobody telling us? Why are we not part of the conversation? Everything was a problem. And I got to the point where mentally and emotionally and even spiritually, I let it burn me. It burned me out. Yeah. And I said, that's it. And I'll never forget. I said, that's it. I had my mind made up. And let me tell you, there's nothing more dangerous than a man reaching a place to make his mind up. And in the manner in which he made his mind up is contrary to the direction God wants you to go. I was going in the opposite direction, man. God was pointing me one way, but I was going the other way. And I was going the other way because of people. And it reminded me how Moses felt leading Israel out of Egypt and the things he went through. You know what I mean? And how other leaders felt. You know what I mean? So it was tough. It was a tough time in ministry. It was hard. It is hard. We can't do it outside of Christ. Jesus says, separated from me, you can do nothing. It's hard to love people who don't love you. It's hard to forgive people who don't want to forgive you. It's hard to lead people who don't want to be led. It's hard to help people who don't want you to pick them up. It's hard to counsel people who reject your counsel the minute they step out of your office. It's hard to shepherd people who don't want to be corrected. I mean, it's hard to bandage people and heal people and stitch them up when they're refusing. And so it was a tough moment for me, and I came to the point where I said, okay, this is it. I spoke to my wife. Anna was not in agreement. Yeah. Anna was not in agreement. Anna cried. Anna wept. Anna hugged me. And Anna said, whatever you do, make sure you talk to God. Don't do anything outside of the will of the Lord, please. Because, now remember, my mind is cloudy. I'm not thinking right. My mind is cloudy. I'm completely distracted. I'm completely disconnected. I'm completely disengaged. I'm just completely, the kill switch was hit. Yeah, boom. You know what I mean? I dare say, I think I was in a depressive moment. I think I fell into a depression. I was just my mind was just blacked out. I wasn't thinking right. I wasn't focused. And I know I wasn't walking in the right direction, and my mind was made up. The most dangerous thing in all of this was that my mind was made up. Yeah. I was leaving. I want everybody to know I was determined to resign and leave. And I even planned it. Christy was living here still.
Yeah.
I paid for her ticket and the kids. to go to Florida under the disguise that we're going to celebrate Christmas together. It had nothing to do with that. It was nothing to do with Christmas, nothing to do with New Year's. I wanted to get everybody together, and with the family in my son's living room, I wanted to share my heart and let them know, when I get back, I'm going back to resign. I'm giving the church, my term. Right. I'm going to submit the letter to the district. I'm going to submit the letter to the church, and I'm done. And I'm leaving. That was my plan. Yeah. That was the direction I was on. And I was determined, and I had my mind made up. And God knew that I had my mind made up. And of course, this is all a part of a burnout experience. You know what I mean? And the church was sending me on a sabbatical. So for the church thought it was a sabbatical. It wasn't no sabbatical. It was a plan that I had. It was an undercover plan. It was a hidden agenda that I had to leave, speak to my family, and make preparation to come back, pack up, and go. That was it. I didn't consult God about it. As a matter of fact, I got to the point, like yesterday's message, I got to the point where I felt like God wasn't listening to me. Yeah. I felt like God had abandoned me. I felt like God had left me. There was plenty of nights in the middle, just like I said in the message yesterday, even though I wasn't preaching about me, but, in my experience, countless of nights where Anna's sleeping next to me, I'm beside her, but I'm crying. I'm crying. I couldn't sleep. You know what I mean? I'm crying out to God, and I'm telling God, why are you so silent? Why are you so far away? Why are you so distant? Could you just say something? This is my prayer to God. Why are you leaving me like this? Say something. Look at how I feel. Yeah. Look at what I'm about to do. My mind is made up, but you ain't saying nothing. That's angry. And countless of nights and countless of nights and countless of nights. And Anna would wake up and sometimes hear me, and she would say, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll wipe my tears. Yeah, I'm good." Yeah, she couldn't see, and the lights are out. She couldn't see anything, but I would get up, go to the restroom, whatever, I had my ways of shielding Anna from seeing me in that condition. You know what I mean? Because I was really burnt out. I was really depressed. I was at a bad place. And it was, that day that, our time is betraying us, but it was that day that I was coming down from the dealer after getting the car serviced, and Anna called me up and said, "Maritza, did you speak to Maritza Rosa?" And I said, "No." Mm-hmm. "She's been trying to contact you." And I said, I haven't seen anything from Maritza Rosa, Maritza, if you're watching, I love you. So I was like, I haven't reached. Yeah, there's somebody that needs to talk to you. Contact Maritza.
Not thinking anything.
Everyday thing, I was like, otra bobería más, whatever. Mind you, I was the president of Radio Amor. Okay, also. Yeah. So I call Maritza. Maritza says, so-and-so has been looking for you. He says that he urgently needs to speak to you. I said, all right, fine, give me his number. She gave me his number. I called him. I didn't get no answer. I left him a message, and he calls me back. When he calls me back, I'm home locked up in my room. I'm in this condition. Yeah. I'm like Elijah, isolated, locked up in my room. You know what I mean? All by myself. Anna wasn't in there with me. I don't even remember if Anna was home. But I was locked up in my room, just laying in bed, depressed. And I get the phone call. He calls me up. He says, "Pastor Mark, how you doing? Thank you for reaching out to me. I've been looking for you. I desperately need to speak to you." And then I said, "All right, brother." He goes, "But I need to see you in person. I can't talk over the phone. I need to see you in person." And I said, "All right. When do you want to meet?" He goes, and it was 2:30. He goes, "Can you meet me at 3 o'clock?" And I looked at my watch. I said, "Well, it's 2:30 now. Where are you at?" He goes, I'm a half hour away from West Haven. Yeah. "Can you meet me at Duchess Diner on Campbell Avenue?" I said, "All right, I'll be there at 3 o'clock. Got ready, left the house, got to Duchess. He's there already parked, waiting for me at the parking lot. He's standing out there waiting for me. And I said, "God bless you, brother." He used to work for the city. He's a born-again Christian. Awesome. He's a member of a church that we know here. And he worked with the mayor in the city of New Haven. And he served I knew him because he served Radio Mol in many ways. You know what I mean? So I thought maybe this was going to be a Radio Mol situation. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, so he's going to talk to me about Radio Mol. And we sat in there. We go in. We sat in the booth. He goes, "You want to eat something?" I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I'll have a cup of coffee." He goes, "Well, if you're not going to eat, I'm not going to eat. I'll have some coffee also because this is going to be quick." And then I said, "All right." And the lady comes. We will have some coffee. When she walks away, he breaks down crying. And so in my mind, I'm telling myself, okay, this has nothing to do with Radio Mol. This is a marital crisis.
Right.
Literally, this is what I'm thinking. I'm trying to, look, I can't even assess my own situation. I'm trying to assess his. And I was just a complete failure. I was failing at everything, man. I couldn't fix myself. I couldn't fix nobody. I was like, so I said, okay, he's crying. This is a grown 73-year-old man crying. This ain't Radio Mol. This has nothing to do with Radio Mol. This is everything. This man's in a marital crisis. I'm trying to discern, and I'm far from discerning, man. I'm just a big mess. And then he goes, "I've been serving the Lord. I was born and raised in the gospel. My parents were pastors. I grew up Assemblies of God, and I'm serving the Lord now. In all of the years that I served God," this is a 73-year-old man, he's weeping. He's weeping profusely. He's just weeping. He goes, "In all of the years that I've served the Lord, I've never heard the audible voice of God." Just like that. Now, I'm about a few days from leaving to Florida. I have a plan. I'm fleeing like Jonah. I'm running like Elijah. I have everything planned out. I have my hidden agenda, hidden from everybody, but not hidden from the eyes of God. And he goes, "I've never heard the audible voice of God, but ever since I had this experience last night, I could not sleep. I haven't been able to close my eyes and sleep, and I've desperately needed to talk to you." I said, "Okay, man, I'm here." He goes, "Last night while I was sleeping, the Lord woke me up and told me, pray for my servant, Pastor Mark, and tell him that what he's about to do, don't do it." And he started crying. Wow. "I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what you're battling with. I don't know what you're about to do. But God woke me up last night, and I heard the voice of God who woke me up and told me, pray for Pastor Mark and tell him that I said, don't do it." He says, "I'm done. I did what God told me to tell you. Don't do it." And at that moment, I broke down crying. I just started weeping and weeping and weeping because nobody knew. Nobody knew. I'm weeping. I'm crying. I'm broken. Now, here are two grown men, a 73-year-old man. And back then, I think I was like 50, 51. And we're sitting in the booth, weeping like two little babies. And the waitress comes. I saw when the waitress came. And when she saw us crying, she started stepping back and walked away. Like, I ain't got nothing to do with it. But here we are in a diner, and God shows up in that booth. And then we prayed together, and that was it. That was the turning point. Everything I was feeling left me. Every ounce of everything I was going through was lifted up off of me. You know what I mean? And we went to Florida.
And came back.
That conversation never happened with the kids. Never touched on it. Never. We went over there. We celebrated Christmas together. You know what I mean? We took a sabbatical.
Yep.
We rested. You know what I mean? We took time for ourselves, and we came back.
That's it.
And the first message I preached was that message, don't do it. The topic was, don't do it. And it was a testimony of everything that I had lived through that moment of depression and burnout. And here we are, man.
That's it. I know the time has betrayed us, but I want this to serve as just a time of encouragement that whether you feel like you're burnt out or you feel like you're being burnt, maybe at the point of wanting to give up and put everything away, this is your wake up call that don't do it. Don't do it. God has a lot more planned for you, but it's about evaluating yourself, searching God, and if you need to talk to somebody, reach out to your pastors, reach out to your leaders, reach out to friends that you can speak to. Pastor Mark is always here. We're all here for you. But with that said, this concludes tonight's podcast. Wednesday we have our school discipleship. 7 o'clock. On Thursday morning we have our
at
prayer.
10 o'clock we got prayer.
And then this Sunday at 10 o'clock we have our service. So it's going to be an awesome service for those that know what's going on. But we're excited. Pastor, any last words before we close?
Yeah, it was a great topic. I think it's a great moment for everyone to search within, ask the tough questions. I think it's important. Look, nobody knows you better than you, and nobody can make the decisions that only you can make. So make an honest inventory of your life, everything that you're doing. Identify the flexible, the non-flexible. What are those talents that God has given you? What are those things that you have chosen to do? Make adjustments, make those tough decisions, establish priorities, create balance, and be safe, man. Be healthy.
That's it. Well, church, God bless you. God keep you. Keep it real.